Visiting the US will not be the same anymore. The Department of Homeland Security in the United States has yet again issued a warning to all foreign nationals to register themselves under the Alien Registration Act, which also requires even 14-year-olds and minors to list themselves or face legal consequences. The DHS has said that all foreign nationals present in the United States for longer than 30 days or whenever entering the country to register with the federal government under the Alien Registration Act. For those already in the country for over 30 days, the deadline was April 11th. Now, will all of this affect Indian travelers, including business travelers to the United States? And before we come to that, Indian students in the United States are seeing their visas revoked and their student status terminated, leaving students there and parents here anxious. Equally, what about students who are set to travel now to start fresh terms? How should they be viewing their stints in the United States as students, and what should they be doing or not? I reached out to Purvi Chothani, founder and managing partner of immigration law firm LawQuest, based in Mumbai and the United States, and began by asking her, firstly, whether she had seen anything like this in her career.
No, I haven't, and I've been doing this for 20 years. There had been drastic steps in the past, historically, when they did the Chinese ban and they did the Japanese internment during the World War II, etc. So there had been bizarre actions in the past, but this is something different. And I think technology has a part to play in the rapidity of how things are progressing.
So, we've been seeing quite a few instances of revocations of visas, and in some cases, evidently, those being found out much after the actual event has happened. As in, people seem to be discovering that their visa actually does not exist. So, my first question is, or a sub question is really, what is the recourse to such students? And that's one, those who are already there. Secondly, how should students here who are about to start another year or a fresh year now, be looking at this situation?
So the situation is very, very difficult for people whose visas have been revoked. But visa revocation is the easy part. If the visa is revoked, they can continue to stay in the United States because their stay in the United States is not defined by the visa. Visa is only an entry document. As long as everything else is in place, they can continue to stay. The problem is, in addition or other than the visa revocation, many students have got CVIS termination. CVIS is the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System that the Department of Homeland Security uses to track all foreign nationals in the education system. And that record being terminated has a direct impact on their legal status in the country. That is more alarming. Now, your second part of the question of what you advise these people, my advice to them is 3 steps. One is immediately go to your designated student officer. Every university, every education institution has a dedicated officer for international students. In different universities, it's called different things, but DSO is a common term to define them all or describe them all. Go and speak to them about it. Some universities are saying, okay, your CVIS has been terminated, but you can still continue to finish your course. You can go to class and continue study. That's a good situation if that happens. But does that make you legal? No. It only allows you to finish your education. You're still going to be illegal in the country. But as long as your illegal term is less than 6 months, you're going to be in an okay position to get back to America. If you've been there for 6 months or more, but less than 12 months, you're subject to a 3-year bar. And then after a year, you're subject to a 10-year bar. So you want to avoid that. So that's step number 1. Go to the DSO. Make sure you're not accruing more than 6 months of illegal stay. Second thing is contact an immigration and a criminal attorney. There are some who combine the both. We call them crimination attorneys. Find one like that and talk to them whether your case is eligible for reinstatement of status, which is a bit difficult to do, but it is an option in some cases. And third, if your situation is really very bad, leave.
So people are, or rather, a lot of students, thousands of students perhaps, have already got admission in or about to get admission for this year. That's the term starting maybe September or August or September 2025. How should people be now approaching a stint, educational stint in the United States as opposed to ever before?
With great caution and some trepidation. It's not easy. But if people are going from India, let's say, with a clean slate, and they keep their slate clean into America, so they don't have any run-in with the police or with the government authorities. They're driving a car, they make sure that they don't get into accidents. They don't drive after drinking or being intoxicated in any way or under the influence. And they keep their car papers in order, which is also very important because somebody got a serious record terminated because the insurance papers had expired and the police picked him up for that. So if they are willing to do this, so basically put your head down, study, be the goody goody child and come back, then yes, America's still for you because the education system is still awesome. But otherwise, hard.
Yeah, and also don't participate in protests and things like that.
Definitely no protests, no rave parties, because just recently, 3-4 days ago in Davis in California, there was a rave party and there was police shooting. So all the students over there, they were questioned. And if you are a foreign student over there, you have unnecessary interaction with the police. So stay away from all these big parties and no protests and nothing on social media. That is critical. That is even critical for students who are applying for a visa. If their social media handles have any anti-Semitic comments, any pro-Muslim comments, any pro-Palestine comments, even a simple like, you're not getting a visa. And if you're in America, you're being thrown out. So keep social media handles extremely clean. If possible, don't be on social media. It's the devil.
Right. The flip side, you're saying that if a student or a potential student is not or has not committed any of these likely offenses and kept their heads down, clean social media, then their path should be fairly clear.
Yes, absolutely. But then we are going to run in abolition of OPT. But yes, at least they'll be able to graduate and not be thrown out. So we've passed one hurdle, but there's another hurdle they're putting on the way where we've got the bill to scrap OPT, postgraduate OPT, which could have a direct impact on students.
How does that work?
So OPT is what they get is 1 year of optional practical training at the end of every graduation level. And if you're a STEM student, you get even an additional 24 months. But if they strap OPT, then students, as soon as they graduate, have to keep unless they've secured the job and the visa, which is hard. So generally, OPT students, they try their luck in an H-1B lottery 1 year, and STEM OPT try their luck 3 times, and many of them strike it lucky. So without OPT, it's going to be very hard. And OPT also is an opportunity to gain practical experience and they get paid on OPT. So some of them use whatever they earn in OPT to pay off student loans. So that could be another big hurdle around the corner. It's at the base still just now, so it's still not the law.
And let me come to two other categories, which I'm assuming are fairly large as when it comes to Indians traveling to the US or visiting the US. So one is H1B, which is also a matter of negotiation at a bilateral level. And the second is green card. A lot of Indians who are actually visiting the US only to get their green cards renewed, so to speak, but are mostly living outside. Many of them could be older parents and so on. So what about these two categories?
So H1B people should not have a very difficult time as long as they're going back to a bona fide job and they also don't have any police record or a DUI or anything because after the student, they're going to come after the H1B. So H1B people are going to soon start getting notices also. So as long as their record is clean and they're going back on an H1B or they have an H1B, they're going to be fine. Again, keep your head down, do your work, don't get involved in too much of activism, etc. So that's fine for the H1Bs. The second part is the green card holders. Now, here's the problem. Once a person has been given a green card, that person is expected to reside in America all the time. A green card is given to you to do that. And if you don't do that, your agent is creating problems for yourself. Whether it's the current changing environment or whether it was the old laws. That is a problem from the beginning. So what these people have to do is they've got to make sure that they spend more time in the United States than outside. If that's not possible, the next time they are in America, they should apply for a re-entry permit, explaining why they need to spend so much time outside the country. And that generally gives you an opportunity to live outside the US for 2 years without harming your green card. If that is also not possible, then I would suggest giving up the green card because it's easier to travel back and forth on a tourist visa, except during COVID where they didn't allow tourists in and they only allowed green card holders in. But honestly, if you're not going to live in America with the green card, you're going to be harassed at every entry now. Even in the past, you were, and I shouldn't say the word harassed, but you're going to be put into secondary interrogation, which is part of the process because each time the officer has to determine that you maintain your permanent residence status. That means that USA is your primary home country and not your secondary home country. You've got to prove it each time.
Right. And you talked about tourists as well. So there's a report rather that anyone living for more than 30 days or staying for more than 30 days in the US has to register themselves and, of course, carry papers all the time. Is that applicable to regular visitors and business travelers and so on?
Not at all. There is the misinformation in the media, unfortunately, that's causing a lot of fear. You are like the third person I'm talking to in the media trying to clarify this, that no, if you had traveled to the United States with a valid visa and you were issued a form I-94, that is your entry and exit history, and that is only available online. Earlier, they used to give you a small white card which they would staple in your passport, but now they don't. So you must log into the cbp.gov website and track your I-94 status. Because once you have both these, you are considered registered. You do not have to register again. That registration is for people who are, let's say you have a child who's less than 14 and he comes with you to Orlando and stays on with his aunt for 2 months. That child has to register. Or let's say you had a child who was just 10 days short of his 14th birthday and he's traveled to the US and he's become 14. He has to register after 30 days of being there. So that registration is only for small category. It also applies to Canadians who cross the border without the need of a visa. They never need a visa, so they're never fingerprinted or anything. They don't have an I-94 record. Those people need to register. But if you're a Canadian student studying in the United States, you have a visa because you can't study without the F1. Then you don't need to register. And this is really mainly to weed out the illegal immigrants who are all paying taxes, etc., but they're not within the immigration system, so nobody can catch them. This is one way of trying to weed them out of the system. And they're also getting data from the IRS to see how many undocumented immigrants are paying taxes out of the net of the immigration authority. That's another thing that is in development as we talk, or already is in place.
So you're saying that basically, if someone is a regular visitor to the US for tourism purposes or for business travel under B1, B2, then really there is no change from before, as long as you come and leave within 6 months.
Right. But you've got to make sure you had your visa with you. And I would take a printout of the I-94 also. So generally, when we are traveling in America, we're not going to carry our passport everywhere. So ideally, you carry your passport and a printout of your I-94 record. Just because if you're questioned, you have it. But if you're not comfortable doing that, because that's not a mandatory requirement, then I would suggest you at least have images of that on your phone so that if you are caught, you can show it to them. And with some numbers on those documents, they can run checks on you. So I would recommend that.
So in that sense, I mean, people do have to now be ready for this new world wherein they have to carry papers and records of their visits in the past and so on.
I would do that. That would be prudent. It's not the man. See, what they say is if you have registered, you must always have proof of registration with you. Then they say that a person who's come on a visa and has an I-94 is deemed to be registered. So then if I'm the lawyer, I would say that ODBIN registration is also registration, so carry your registration document. What is that? Your visa and your I-94 record. So that's the logic why I'm recommending this.
Purva, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure to talk to you.